We have indeed begun Holy Week with a tragedy, with passion, in a spirit of suffering, pain, uncertainty, anxiety, worry, and sadness. But I have three words for you today, this morning. The first is what I just mentioned. The word is tragedy. But I have a second and a third. And the second has to do with surprise. And after the surprise, then we have what all of this leads to in the end. And that is victory. Victory, by the way, that only the centurion in today's passion narrative coming from the Gospel of Mark said much ahead of time. And the centurion of all people, and this is one of the surprises that I would like you to be conscious about. The centurion, who was not even a Jew, said, "Truly he is the Son of God." Let me begin with the first, and that is tragedy. I don't know whether you have seen the movie Kalel. I don't know when that was produced. I just saw it a few months ago. And there is another movie, Denver. Both are stories of young boys, and both are tragic stories. It was difficult to see both movies. Kalel was a young boy who early on was not just dying of AIDS. He was suffering, and his suffering was brought about by conditions that he had no control. A mother whose morals was questionable, a father who unexpectedly was somebody who should not be siring a child. And Denver is a tragic story of a boy who at the end killed himself because there was no way out anymore, out of the impasse of one suffering after another. Both movies talk about our life situation. Both movies are so realistic. Both movies talk about something tragic. And because they are tragic, they are hard to watch. Hard to watch because they talk about the reality that we are facing. And let me tell you right off that the passion narrative that we have just heard have nothing to do with Kalel and Denver. They have nothing to do with questions that have no answers. They have nothing to do with suffering that ends in total defeat and utter destruction. The passion narrative may be tragic, but it began in triumph, and it ends in the greatest triumph of all time. You see, Holy Week is a very interesting time in the Roman Catholic calendar and in the Christian imagination, in the totality of the Christian narratives, in the way we hold on to our faith. We talk about the past because we want to have insights about the present, and we are looking forward to a future that is filled with victory and marked by hope. So, my dear friends, we are suffering once again, and it's been a year we have been in lockdown. Nobody wants to call it lockdown, but for all intents and purposes and practically speaking, it is. And there will be checkpoints because they need to impose the curfew from 6 p.m. to 5 a.m. We are suffering, but I'd like you to hold on to the beginning story of triumph, sandwiched in the story of triumph in the beginning and the ultimate triumph at the end of time. began by the historical event of the resurrection that we look forward to next Sunday. But between the two triumphs, there is sandwiched the reality of life in this world, the reality of our human existence, finite, and we are suffering, we are in pain, but that is not the final chapter of our lives. And therefore, the story of Passion Sunday really opens us to a world of surprises. And let me now talk about surprises. The first surprise was about that woman who brought out aromatic nards, that woman who was not expected to bathe the Lord's feet, that woman who prophetically brought aromatic spices in view of his death and burial. But that woman didn't just prophesy the death of the Messiah. She was proclaiming her faith and devotion and loyalty and attachment to the Messiah. Never mind if he will suffer and die an ignominious death on the cross. But there she was, proclaiming with aromatic spices the reality about the Messiah who will die, but who will rise from the dead in order to bring us all to eternal life. There is also the surprise about Peter. Peter was the trusted disciple, but Peter denied the Lord. There was also the big surprise about Judas. Judas, who was trusted with the money of the company of Jesus, the 12 disciples. But then Judas wanted more, and he sold the Lord for 30 pieces of silver. But there too was the surprise, and the biggest surprise of them all is the surprise of the centurion. My dear friends, I'd like you to be open today to surprises. There is a time in our lives when our faith could be described as a summer faith experience. When you could go outing, you could go swimming in Matabungkay, in beaches all over the country. When you can enjoy the outdoors and run like free men and women and free children and young people to your heart's delight. That's a summer faith experience. But we are now in the winter faith experience of darkness. But that summer experience of brightness and light now replaced by the winter experience of despair and darkness and seeming defeat. This is not the final chapter of our existence. So take heart. We are looking forward to another summer experience of faith that will never end. And what is our proof? Wait for Sunday, when we shall declare the reality that will be ours too. Christ has died. Christ is risen. Christ will come again.